You deserve to have the best physical, mental, spiritual, Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Sorry about last weekend. We actually were, last weekend we had Memorial Day. So I kind of was thinking well, we need to take Memorial Day off to kind of, give our graces to the men and women who served our country and, just kind of take a break from the show. So we didn't do a show last Monday, but we're live right now. It's June. Can you guys believe that? It's crazy how fast May. I just had a birthday. Yay me! I'm 54 now. I had a birthday on the 22nd. So, but I don't feel 54. I feel amazing. I feel like I'm in my mid 20s. It's amazing if you treat your body well and you do things the right way and stay busy. You definitely will stay young as well. I think that there's a lot of people out there that kind of don't spend a lot of good quality time with family, friends, and themselves really. To kind of get themselves in good shape and kind of more or less try to stay young. I've always been a fan of that. But today we have a guest who is got some incredible background. Part of one of the things that I thought about when I'm reading his bio, I'm thinking Tom Coughlin. Okay, I played for a guy by the name of Tom Coughlin. For all you football fans that knew the Jaguars back in the day, the glory years when we were actually really, really super good. We're getting better now. Obviously, we're good. Had a good season last year, but I played in 2 AFC Championship games in 7 years for the first 7 years of the Jaguars' existence. So we were good. But Tom Coughlin was a huge reason why we were so good. But more detail about Tom Coughlin, for those who don't know about Tom Coughlin, he was the head coach of the Jaguars, but very, very disciplined, man. This guy, you couldn't get away with anything, which, I was a good boy. I didn't really try to get away with anything. I was a rule follower, but a lot of the guys weren't so much. You talk about rules and things like that, but it's definitely a situation where there's rules that you're like, that's kind of silly. That's crazy. He's not going to abide by that. And sure enough, they get a fine in their locker the next day when they wear a different shirt than they're supposed to. Now, again, you think it's kind of silly and crazy, but it was purposeful. And back then when I was younger, and a lot of the guys too in the locker room would have the same sort of attitude, like, why is this guy so hard on us? Why is he so disciplined? Why is he always like monitoring? He's like hovering over us. He watches us. He knows everything about us, and we can't get away with anything in here. And it really is because it's such a prestigious business at that level of football, highest level of football in the world. And his attitude was just incredibly disciplined. And he felt like if he was spending that much time on football and knowledge and just understanding mindsets and just, obviously the X's and O's in football, that he wanted us to be the same. And I think, looking back, it was kind of like, man, this guy's kind of crazy, whatever. And he did some offlandish things where he would, even the media would kind of criticize him a little bit here and there. But he won games. He made us better men. And I look back. That's what I'm saying. Like back then, I didn't realize it. But the older I grew up and knew and kind of learned and understood what the reasoning really was behind a lot of his methodologies, the reasons behind the methods to his madness, we'll call it. It was a big deal. It was like, wow, this is actually a life lesson. It's a big life lesson. And my point was saying all that is my guest today, he spent time in the United States military as a Marine. And he was also a police officer for Fort Worth Police Department for many years. But I'll get into that information in a while after our break. But just it's crazy to kind of relate. That's when I was reading his bio. I was like, dude, this is like Tom Coughlin was coming right out at me. Like this is what Tom Coughlin would love. This is exactly what his mindset was. And I think it's amazing because, life is hard and there's a lot of things and decisions we make on a regular basis. So with that said, we'll watch a quick commercial break. When we get back, I'll introduce our guest. His name is Captain Kirk Driver. That's perfectly cool. I love it. So with that said, we'll be back in a second and we'll get right into the show.
It is possible. It's different this time. I'm showing up for myself. Because now I know that weight isn't about effort alone. It's not just calories in, calories out. For years, the world told us it was simple. Eat less, move more, try harder. But science has shown us it's more complex than that. It's a real metabolic condition. That's where GLP-3 comes in. Powered by MBC 267, a naturally derived peptide complex discovered in salmon from the Norwegian Sea and select mushrooms. GLP-3 works with the body's own system to help manage appetite and support metabolic balance. No fighting your body, no forced outcomes, just support where it actually matters. Because when you address the real factors at play, progress feels possible. I'm becoming the best version of myself. This is me and GLP-3.
All right, welcome back. So today I have a guest with me by the name of Captain Kirk. Love it, Captain Kirk Driver. He's a 34-year veteran of the Fort Worth Police Department and a former United States Marine. Over his career, he served under a wide range of leaders, some exceptional and others who taught him just as much through their failures, which I can relate to as well. Through decades of law enforcement, military service, and work with city leaders, business executives, and nonprofit organizations, Kirk learned that leadership breaks down when expectations become unclear and accountability becomes optional. I love that. I'm gonna steal that from you, Kirk.
Right
That insight led him to develop Zero Gray, a practical leadership and system designed to help organizations eliminate ambiguity, strengthen decision making, and create absolute accountability at every level. Today, Kirk shares these lessons through keynote speaking, workshops, and small team coaching designed to help leaders build cultures where standards are clear, ownership is expected, and gray areas do not become excuses. Man, those are great words. Kirk, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I am fantastic. I am. I'm absolutely phenomenal. Life is so good.
What an incredible optimistic attitude. I love it.
You know, I was talking to a friend of mine the other night, and I said, "It's good to see you." And he says, "Man, better seen than viewed, right?" And how true is that? Now, today's a beautiful day, and every day's a beautiful day. It don't matter what's going on out there. How your day goes is all in here. And you know that probably better than anyone else. Playing at the NFL, you have to be at the highest level of mindset. And this in here controls so much of not only what goes on in your interactions in the world, but this in here controls a lot of those internal interactions in your own body, the chemistry that happens in there. That, you know, if I think, okay, I'm going to have a great day, the chances of me having a good day go up exponentially, all because of what I said to myself.
I love that. And I had a buddy. I bring him up a lot in this podcast. His name is Bernie Hill, and he passed away during COVID. He wasn't a very healthy guy and got COVID and succumbed to that. But he was a very a smart guy and very optimistic. He had a voicemail. The message his actual message on his voicemail was, the last part of it was, "Make it a great day." And I love that. And I take that from him. I say, listen, you know, that is the definition of kind of the outlook of life that you want to have on a daily basis. You can make it a great day, or you can make it a bad day, clearly. And you know, when people talk about your mind and how powerful it is, you know, you think about how you can have a great day, you can have great happiness, you can enjoy a great life if you want to. And it's like you said, it's a mindset. And when you think about different positions in life and in professions, and it's sometimes a little bit of a struggle when it comes to the intensity of the actual thing that you're doing. And like you said, with the mind, your mind is very powerful. I tell people all that a lot. I say, listen, you have no idea how powerful your mind is until you see what your mind can actually do. And then once you're addicted to that point, because, man, I can see what I can do, and now you want more, and so it becomes an addiction. I think that a lot of people out there have no idea how powerful their mind is. Is there something that you kind of deal with in your background that kind of taught you about how powerful your mind is?
I have, and I mean, I've actually what's that guy's name? Tim Ferriss, 4 hour work week, and he's done all these experiments on himself. And I've read some of his stuff, and then I read other guys like Goggins and their stuff. And there seems to be this big theme, and this isn't just a recent phenomenon. I mean, this goes back years and years. And like Goggins put it, something to the effect of, we truly, when you're pushing that weight, when you're doing, man, I can't do any more push-ups, I can't do any more pull-ups, I can't do any more, physical stuff, and I guarantee you, this hits home for you. I can't go any further. Yeah, when you say that, and when you're ready to quit, you're about 20% in. You literally have 80% more in reserve that you didn't even know was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it. I've felt it. I've been in a crisis situation, adrenaline jump. I don't talk about it a lot. I'd been on the department not even 2 years yet, and I was involved in a shooting. And yeah, it's a horrific situation. It was legitimate. We kicked in a door on a domestic, the gal screeching. Run in, dude's on top of her, and he ends up grabbing a knife and stabbing her. It's a horrible thing. And we shot him. Okay. And I'd really had no intention of going here in this story. This is, freestyle, I guess. But when that was like, shot the dude, he goes down, and I stepped over him and picked her up, and she was well north of 250 pounds. And I picked her up, I mean, like, she felt like, to me, it was like throwing a, 70, 80 pound stack of potatoes over my shoulder, and I carried her out without even thinking about it. And my point in that is the adrenaline dump and everything. And you hear this story of like, kids trapped under a car and a woman will go over and pick up the car. You've heard all this lore of things like that. I've actually experienced it in that situation where I grabbed a woman that was 250 plus, picked her up, threw her over my shoulder, and carried her outside, not thinking anything of it. And that's, I had that much strength in me. On a normal day, I can't throw 250 pounds over my shoulder in the gym and pick it up off the floor and then throw it over there. But that's because this controls and regulates. So
Yeah.
I'm going to step you back a little bit. You said happy, Memorial Day. You missed a thing and everything, and then right after that, you went into about feeling good and feeling good and older. As you become older, etc. And the secret to that, is keep moving. So there's a local guy that his name's Don Graves. He's kind of a local legend. This guy was a World War II Marine, served the island hopping campaign in the Pacific. Was actually there when they raised the flag on Iwo Jima. Okay. He just turned 101 last month.
Oh my.
And this guy goes around all over town still. I mean, every week he's somewhere singing God Bless America, talking about his experiences as a Marine and the war and patriotism and civic duty and those type of things. So I'm at this event, probably, 2 months ago, he's speaking. And this old guy is just going. And someone asks him, said, "Hey, Don, what is your secret? How are you at 101 years old still out here doing it?" And he said, in his gravelly voice, he says, "Man, let me tell you," he says, "several years ago, somebody told me the secret to living longer is if you stop moving, you stop moving. So don't stop moving." And I'm like, okay, that's genius in its simplicity. But isn't that so true for humans? It's like if I leave my lawnmower out in the yard and let it get rained on and everything, and I leave it out there a season or three, it's not going to work. It'll rust. Okay?
Right.
Leave my bicycle out in the yard, it's going to rust. Well, who are we to think we're any different? If you sit and don't do anything, you atrophy, you rust, whether that's physically, mentally, spiritually.
Yep.
or in any other fashion. Okay.
Yeah.
So my advice to any of your listeners out there is when you stop moving, you stop moving. So don't stop moving.
Yep, I definitely agree with that. There's, a lot of, I've been that same way too. And my thought and my story really, after I retired from football, the last thing I wanted to see was like a weight room and work out because
Sure.
my back, I had 4 back surgeries during the time I played. So
Mhm.
I wanted to give my back a rest, and it was a little too long. And the longer I sat around, and I didn't eat great even back then too, I put on some weight and I got a little heavier, and then my back hurt even worse. I'm like, this is crazy. So I kind of learned that the least amount, like if I don't move around and don't be active, my back hurts worse.
Yep.
And so that was kind of key number one. It's like, hey, I gotta make sure that I'm moving around. Obviously, I got to be careful with what I do. But these days, man, I tell you, I've been doing boxing for like 14 years now, and now I'm doing F45 in the last couple of years, which is like a circuit training with weights and stuff. And I was afraid to do weights after a while, because of my back. But after 14 years of boxing and then jumping into weights, I'm fine. I was telling somebody today on the phone, I say, I can't believe how good I feel today. Like just in
Yeah.
general, I feel good because I'm very active and I'm always moving around. And that's an important point because I think, just like a vehicle, I was out trying to start my old Camaro. I have my very first car that I owned as a kid.
You still have it?
I still have it to this day.
Holy smokes, dude.
1967 Camaro.
Oh
And
my
of course,
gosh.
I threw some money in it. It's not like a huge fancy, amazing looking car, but it's
That's
really, really nice car. And it didn't start. I'm like, oh my gosh. So, but again, it's my fault for not driving it as much as I should. That's my
Right.
fault. So going back to your point, obviously of moving with anything in general, but tell me a little bit about Zero Gray. Like what I clearly understand why you started it, but what is it that what fill our listeners in on what kind of details about it and why it's so important to you?
Okay, so 34 years law enforcement, 6 years prior to that, Marine Corps, Marine Reserves. Um, I saw a lot of leaders. In fact, a lot of people don't realize. I mean, you understand with the military that they push leadership. They always, constant leaders, small unit leadership, and as you grow up through the ranks, the leadership lessons and the training you get is bigger and on a higher scale. A lot of people don't realize how much that law enforcement and police service and fire service follow similar tracks. That there's always pushing us leadership training all the way down to the individual, and then as you rise through the ranks, you got to every test you take, there's always a leadership book or two on it. And pardon me. So we get a lot of leadership training. And I've seen some I've had some phenomenal leaders over the years. And then I've had some leaders that, wow, okay, I just read this leadership book and there's such and such is talking about 14 points of being a good leader. And you're a red X on 10 of them. How did that happen? And how did it happen that you're still in this job and you're out here, quote unquote, well, you're not leading people, you're managing people. And there's a difference. But how is it that you're able to survive in that? And so as I got closer to the end of my career, I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do in my next job. And I actually started a security consulting business. I had a executive coach. I still work with the guy. And that seemed like a natural transition. And I'm sitting with my buddy Chris Harris and several other friends, or as I call them, my advisory council. After we hit the gym, we're working out one morning, and they're like, hey, how's that security consultant going? I'm like, Like, what do you mean? And I was like, dude, this sucks. This is a job. I don't want to do this.
J-O-B.
And they're like, well, don't. You're about to retire. Why? You don't have to do something. Why would you invest any more time in something you don't want to do? And what do you want to do? And it made me think back to about 6 months earlier, maybe 4 months earlier, if that. A friend of mine calls me last minute, hey, Kirk, I'm hosting a forum we got this thing around the city. I think it's Leader Prime is one of them, but where you sign up for this and you learn all about the city departments and how the city functions, et cetera. So he's hosting a forum on this, and he says, We're talking about leadership. I had my speaker drop out at the last minute, or one of them, can you come in? And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I don't know what I'll talk about. They're like, you're going to be great. And so I go to this thing blind, and and it's me. It's someone. It's like a assistant city manager over HR, and then one of the local council members. And he says, "Okay, so we're talking about leadership." And he asked city or assistant city manager, what's your best leadership lesson? And she said, I mean, it was total. I mean, nothing against her, but her lens is HR, and it always will be. And that adage of, if all I've got's a hammer, all I see is nails. So her answer was a total HR answer. Like, if you see something wrong, tell your boss. Don't sexually harass people. Or it was literally. I mean, that may be hyperbole, but you get my point.
Yeah.
And then so he asked this council member, and that guy, in true political fashion, he danced all the way around, but he never landed on the actual answer to the question. And then he asks me, "I'm not a guru, dude. I'm not. I'm just a Joe out here who's made some observations and sees some gaps that I think we can fill." So he says, what do you think is your greatest leadership lesson? And I think about it. It's like, I can't tell you what my greatest leadership lesson is, because what's great to me might not land for you. And so that's a very individualized thing. And what your greatest leadership lesson, what I would say now in retrospect, is the one that you actually take to heart and do. That's the greatest one. But then I was like, well, I don't know what the greatest one is, but I'll tell you what the first one is, and you'll appreciate this. The first leadership lesson is, do not even think about leading anyone else until you get your own moral compass grounded. You have to be aligned on true north, and you have to know where you stand on that. You have to know where you stand on the things that you're going to come across, because there will be trying situations. Preload those, your responses to that. Sit with yourself, have some Zen time. What do I want to be when I grow up? What kind of leader do I want to be? What's the image I want to portray? How am I going to handle myself when things get rough? What are those things that could go wrong? What am I going to do when approached with this? And something as simple as, I got a boss who's wanting me to cut corners, and I know it's against policy, and I know it's the wrong thing to do. How do I respond to that? And am I able to respond to that? Am I financially in a position that I can walk away from a business that is not where I want to be, or might ask me to do ethically unsound things, or even criminal things? Can I walk away from this? And if I can't, maybe I need to examine that part of my life too. But that first lesson is, get your moral compass grounded, or grounded. I told these people this, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, this is great." And I'm thinking, this is basic. And so when they asked me, the guys at breakfast, "What do you want to do?" I said, to be honest, I want a keynote. I want to speak. I want to speak on leadership, because that was just the first question. And it went on and on and on. And all through the night, this guy's throwing questions at us, and I'm just knocking it out of the park. But it's not on me. It's again, these are things that have been so ingrained into us. It'd be like me asking you to kick a football, man. And I mean, and then everyone else going, "Oh my gosh," and not knowing that you're a pro, right? Not knowing all those hours that you put into this. We go out and hang out on a Sunday, and we're at a local, high school ball field, and I say, "Hey, see if you can kick this thing through them uprights." And it's a 30-yard kick. I don't know. And for me, man, I couldn't even get my foot halfway on that ball. And someone else who doesn't know this sees that, holy smokes, man, you're incredible. No, and nothing against you, Mike.
I'm
I mean,
prepared.
you're prepared,
Yep.
and even if you didn't practice that day,
Mhm.
you have done the drills so many times that the muscle memory is there that you've got a reasonably solid chance of succeeding just because you put in that effort.
Yeah. That's what I
Well,
was going to mention earlier about, with everything you've been talking about, the words that are coming to my mind is a leader has to be prepared because he's the example,
yes,
and if you're not prepared and you're telling these other people to do what you're doing, or if if you've given them directions, they first off got to respect you, and then the respect comes from your history and what you know and how
yeah,
you've led all your life, or whatever the case may be. But that's why I think I always bring up Tom Coughlin, because
sure.
he came from a very disciplinary sort of background, military even,
Mhm,
and then coming to the as a professional coach in the NFL. He was actually a receiver coach with the Giants before coming. I went to
mhm,
then he went to Boston College, then he came to Jacksonville. But he just had that attitude and this confidence. That's another thing too. When you get to that position as a leader, you've got that confidence, and you have to have confidence. If you
you
show
do.
any doubt to anybody that's following you as a leader,
Yep,
forget it. They've lost respect for you, and like, you don't fit in that mold anymore. So
correct.
you definitely, with your background, you definitely have been at the top of those levels as far as the Marines and the police department. I mean, you have to hold a very, very large amount of discipline and accountability, because again, we relate as players. We do a lot of things for like wounded warriors and in organizations for veterans, that military veterans that come back. There's an organization called MVP. It's called Merging. An acronym for Merging Vets and Players.
Mhm.
Look it up. It's a very cool thing. They actually have a movie on Netflix. It's a pretty cool movie. And they talk about how when we retire from when they retire from the military, they come back and they don't know who they are anymore, and they don't have a purpose anymore, and friendships, and it's a very strange environment. We experience the same kind of thing, but the biggest difference clearly is you guys are out there as in the military with the option, or the understanding that you could die. That is a heck of a lot different than football. We're not dying on the football field per se.
Person.
Guys have, but you understand what I'm saying. It's not a
Yeah,
life and death thing for us, but we're expected. The accountability and the level of expertise
mhm.
is incredible at that level. You guys as well, but you also have that extra area of death, really. So it's got to
Sure.
be even more. So leadership in your fields, I believe, is a lot more intense than the leadership in something like what I did. That's for fun.
Right, and that's one of the tenets of zero gray leadership. You set that moral compass, but then you have to, as the leader, you have to define and enforce those standards that you've set with clarity and consistency. Okay, you can't. Okay, well, this guy's my buddy, and I'm going to let him slack on X, Y, Z. But these guys over here, they're not. So I'm gonna really be the disciplinarian. That doesn't work, because the people you lead will see that all the way around. You have to be consistent, and as a leader, you are expected to define, what the lanes are. You know, I
That's,
um
yeah.
I so Harkening back to the military, there's a thing called a commander's intent speech. I don't know if you may have heard of this term. So the premise of this is, if okay, first of all, the commander says, here's our mission. Here's what we are trying to achieve in this. Now, here's the parameters that you're going to operate in. And if the wheels fall off of this thing and you find yourself sitting outside of policy or training or whatever, if you do these things, you're probably going to be okay. And so for me, I really respect that and I like that. And I started adopting this, and I saw huge results from this in my own experience as a leader, where I'd go into a unit and I had a commander's intent speech, and a portion of it was specific to law enforcement, but the second portion was, I believe there's two types of mistakes in this world. There's mistakes of the head and mistakes of the heart. Okay? A mistake of the head. My heart's in the right place, but I'm doing something, stepping outside of policy. I'm breaking the rules. I may or may not even know I'm breaking the rules. And sometimes I do know I'm breaking the rules, but I'm breaking them for a good reason that I can justify that is selfless and it is helping someone else. And it's the right thing to do. We're not, it's one thing to help someone else by giving them the company's money and, okay, steal. And, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, we got this policy to do this. You can't go, you can't go beyond this, whatever. You know what? I'm going to make a command decision on my own. I'm going to do that because it's the right thing to do. I'll ask for forgiveness later. Okay, that's a mistake of the head. To me, that's training opportunity at best. And that person may get scuffed up a little bit, but I want them. I want to keep them in my organization. Conversely, there's mistakes of the heart. It's wrong. You knew it was wrong. You did it anyway. Almost always for personal gain. Okay?
Yep.
Can't steal from the company till. Can't screw around with the staff. All those things that men are especially guilty of. Okay? I'm not just picking on men, but my point is those self-serving things, there's no business for them in my organization. And I tell them up front, if you get caught up in this, understand that I'm going to be the first guy working to get you shown out of here. Because I don't have any room for that on my team.
Right.
You would be surprised at how many times after giving that speech that I've had folks come, officers that were in my command come up to me. Yeah, I screwed this up, and I was just, I like, oh my gosh, they're going to fire me, blah, blah, blah. And one of my buddies came up to me and said, no, remember what Captain Driver said, mistakes of the head, mistakes of the heart. You're trying to do the right thing. You're going to be okay. And for me, that's a reinforcement loop that, okay, they're actually listening to me and they're taking heed to this. And the troops are trying to do the right thing. That applies, verbatim. You can take that and put it in a corporate environment.
Yep.
But how many times do we see the boss come in and say, okay, gather around, we need to have a talk. Let me explain the mission of our organization, what our goals are, how we're going to get there, and what we need from you and what we expect. These are critical things that if you violate this code, you're out of here. These other, the other things, if you're trying to do right and you don't have time to qualify it with a supervisor, just do your best to get it right. And you may get scuffed.
Yeah.
But we're going to do our best to keep you.
Yeah. We had, thinking about football, and Tom Coughlin again, bringing him up, but we had guys on the team. Of course, a couple things about Tom Coughlin. You were talking about how be consistent with stuff, and a lot of the veterans at this new team, the Jacksonville Jaguars in 1995, your Jeff Logemans and guys like the Mark Brunells and guys that had played a few years prior to coming to Jacksonville, they couldn't believe some of the rules that Tom was doing for them. And not necessarily Mark. Mark was pretty cool, but like Jeff Logeman, guys that had experienced a lot more different teams and a lot more different coaches. They were a little catered more towards a little bit better with those other coaches when they come to Jacksonville. Now everyone's on the same playing field, so Tom treated everyone the same. So no veterans, you got a bed check too. Like, wait, what? We got a bed check? Of course you do. This is a team where we win and lose as a team. And so we had that going on, and I clearly understood that. It made sense to me, even though some guys were a little upset with it. But, hey, he wins games, right? But the other thing, too, is with regards to kind of just having that team camaraderie. And so I remember we had a lot of player-only team meetings when things were not happening very well, and Tom was screaming at us and yelling at us and telling us we were doing things wrong and this and that. And everyone's kind of upset and pissed off, we'll say, whatever, but just kind of, mad, and Tom was, calling the plays, and he was the dictator, right? He was there just to kind of tell us what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. and we, some guys were like kind of sick of it. And so we'd have these team meetings, these player only team meetings, but they were more so like, hey guys, we know that Tom Coughlin's the head coach, we can't do anything about that. He's the guy in charge. Okay. But what we do have is us, and we can be accountable to us. And they would call guys out for going out on a Friday night before a Sunday game.
Right.
And that's it. You got the leadership of the organization, the coaches and the general managers, those kind of guys, the higher ups. Then you have the team leadership. You got the guys, the individuals, your Jeff Lagermans and your leaders. A lot of leaders that you see on these NFL teams, they get the respect from the other teammates, and they teach these teammates that don't know any better how to deal exactly what you're talking about, how to kind of deal with leadership and
well. Yeah. Even what you just said right there, that story you described, you think Tom didn't know that was going to happen?
No, he knew it. He knew it.
That if he's hard on you, y'all are all against him now, and now you're a united front, and you're developing your own internal leadership system, where like these guys inside are stepping up to take the reins. And what are they doing? They're reinforcing the very thing that he's pushing for you.
Yeah.
So in uniting you on one common enemy, him, not for every situation, but sometimes that is a style of leadership.
Yeah.
You ever see that show Band of Brothers? Remember that?
Many years ago, yeah.
About World War II, D-Day and all that. So one of the leadership courses I went through was, and at West Point, the U.S. Military Academy, for several years after that program came out, they did a whole year, not just a semester, a whole year of dissecting Band of Brothers, the TV show, for the leadership styles in it. And if you recall, the one guy, that guy who was on Friends, whatever that actor's name is, dark hair. So that guy, he portrayed their training captain. I believe he was a captain. I could get the rank wrong. But the guy was a jerk, and they hated him. And they all united. We'll show him by doing better than he expects us to do.
But see what it did, and brand leaders bring it out of you too. That's what I'm saying. Like,
and while that was a despised character, did he get the job done? And I'm not suggesting make yourself the enemy to your people, but at the same time, when you look at it from a pure leadership standpoint, what was his mission? What was his time frame to get it done? And what did he actually accomplish in that? He met his objectives in the time frame established. It was a jerk to him to get him there, but it actually got the mission accomplished. And so in a leadership aspect, that's a success.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what we'll end with this, but with regards to just how do people reach you? Like you doing speaking engagements? Do you have a Zero Gray part of that? Like how do people reach you, and what can you offer?
So Zero Gray is the primary platform to reach me. ZeroGray.com, Gray, the American version of Gray, Zero Gray. And you can contact me through there. You can schedule me to book, or excuse me, you can book me to speak through that website. And that's my primary focus right now, is doing keynotes and getting this out there. I'm expanding. I'm working on building the platform out for small group coaching and half day and full day workshops on this. There may be a book in the works in the near future. We'll see. But right now, the big focus is just getting this message out and helping people develop into better leaders.
Right. I love that. And I think that everybody kind of needs, that support, knowing that they can always be better. That's one thing that a lot of people have struggled with, is that they have doubts about themselves, and they need people like you to lift us up. I said us because I've had doubts of myself too. I still do. We all do. Mm-hmm. So getting guys like you that, go ahead.
Iron sharpens iron.
That's
How
right.
do we get better? we constantly go to the training. We constantly do the things that are pushed forward. I mean, that's up to the individual. You want to get better, go get better.
Yep.
What's it worth to you?
Yep. And I've always talked about passion. So once you have a passion for something, you figure out what your purpose and passion is, go for it 1,000%, as hard as you can. It does take a little bit of passion and interest in what you're doing, clearly, because you said it yourself, you were doing whatever you're doing before. You're like, I don't like this. This is not me, but my point is, like, any life venture, anything in life, whether you're, whatever you're doing, there is some sort of knowledge and leadership that you've got to kind of, set yourself up with. Because again, I've coached kicking for almost 20 years now, and
Sure.
I love it.
Well,
Yep.
and exactly what you're saying. If you're not passionate about your job, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's going to be days that just suck. There
Yeah.
will. But if the trajectory, if that, if the horizon still lights you on fire for it, keep after it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to suck. There's going to be days you don't feel like doing it. Okay. Those are the days you put in the work. But if you're seeing a dead end to where you're at, why would I spend another day doing that? Now, that's easy for me to say, having pensioned and
Right.
retired. But again, short term suck. Okay, fine. But long term, man, I cannot see me doing something else. Go figure out what you want to do. Go figure out how to monetize that, and then go make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is no sense wasting your air on something that you absolutely hate. And that applies to anybody, anywhere. And if your passion, I don't know, go be a landscaper. And if your passion's doing that, if your passion is working with horses, or if your passion's playing football, you may not play at the professional level, but you know what? What about coaching? Passing those skills. If you're good at it, and oh yeah, well, I can't get into the pros. Okay, well, you took a lot to get you to even thinking about getting into the pros. That means you're pretty dang good at it.
Right. Right.
We'll go teach someone else how to be good at it.
Very good. Very good.
That's your passion on.
Love the words of wisdom, and I definitely appreciate your time tonight. I think this was very, very insightful. I'm relatable with regards to my experience with football and all that. So with that said, is there any closing remarks you'd like to make? We'll end the show.
So I'm going to leave you with 3 words. And this goes back to my days in the Marine Corps. I had this situation. I end up somewhere, and I pushed beyond what my authority technically was to score hot chow for my people. It's a big story, but I got caught. This, and it wasn't we didn't steal or anything. Okay, it's like we end up we're offloading stuff, and I liaison with the captain of the boat and got us hot chow from their galley. Okay, so it's a cool story, but the captain who's over this whole pier finds out, oh my gosh, these guys are what are they doing eating on the boats? They're not, I get summoned. I end up in front of this guy, and he's like, what's the deal? Did you authorize this? Yeah, I did. I did authorize this. Well, why? Well, because my guys are eating cold chow every day, and I got them hot food. And he says, come walk with me. Let's talk. And we walked down the pier, and he said, I really like the initiative that you took on this, and you're taking care of your people. He said, remember this: mission, men, me, in that order. You take care of your mission, you take care of your personnel. It was, Marine Corps is men, war zone. Take care of your personnel, and you take care of yourself. You got to do the self-care. You got to eat right. You got to work out. You got to keep your mind right, and decompress and all that other stuff. You do those 3 things in that order: mission, men, me. You will go far. And I have found that to be words to live by.
I like it. I like it a lot. That's very, very good. Very good. Okay, well, thank you so much again for the insight, and definitely some relationship there with regards to my experience, your experience, and we're both seen leadership and been leadership. And
Yes, sir.
it's an awesome experience when we're able to help others and encourage others. That's really where I'm coming from, encouragement
It
part.
really is. And when you see the potential that those people have and you see them
Yes.
going and meeting that and exceeding that, man, that's the biggest gift back to me I could give myself.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for having me on your show, Mike. I really
Awesome.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Kirk. I appreciate it. With that said, guys, you guys have an amazing Monday night, and we'll see you definitely next Monday night on Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis. Y'all have a good night. Love you all.
Thank you for watching Zealous Wellness with Mike Hollis.
Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time.